Hello from Mystery Island, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and I am looking forward to another conversation with my good friend Hrvoje Morić of Geopolitics and Empire, one of the hardest working citizen journalists that I've seen and I know. And every time I get the chance to catch up with him, I learn a lot. So it'll be fun, and we'll talk about the big stories of the year, at least so far. And welcome back to McDuff Lives, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and my guest this morning here in the East Coast is on the West Coast of Mexico, our good friend Hrvoje Morić. Hello, Hrvoje.
Hello from FEMA Region 12, the Mexican sector. And I like to consider myself simply a podcaster, which, I record chats with people and throw them up online. There seems to be less legal implications than calling myself a journalist. So.
Well, I could call you a journalist because I know your work and I know the quality of what you do. So forgive me for taking the liberty, but podcaster it shall be. My favorite Mexican podcaster by far.
Croatian, Mexican, American podcaster. So, yeah.
Right, from Chicago.
Yeah.
I got you. All right, so we've zeroed in on your multi ethnic whatever whatever. You're a multi-phase
Global citizenship.
Thank you.
UN would love that.
You really are, in a way. I mean, the most global citizen I've ever met because of all your experiences that you've told me. At least I know you were there, like at Kazakhstan and Mongolia, and oh my goodness. So you have an amazing track record so far of being, like in Geneva, being able to study there. So you have a broad view that I love engaging with. I know I throw it at you at the last minute, but so far in the year, do you have the idea of one big story that has dominated or will change history, or that you think is the first one that comes at least at the top of a list of big stories for 2025?
I guess there's a number we can maybe get into. Obviously, what's happening in the backyard, the Trump doctrine, Monroe Doctrine 2.0, Venezuela, and all that. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna say that's maybe like second. But first, you know me, it starts and ends with the algorithm ghetto. And I was talking on this in the past two interviews that I gave. I mean, how funny how life works out. I've been banging on. I mean, you know me about technocracy, algocracy, the digital gulag for over half a decade now. When I always reference my 2020 interview with Edwin Black, who coined the phrase algorithm ghetto, comparing it to physical ghettos Jews were put in. Well,
And
guess
this
what?
is Edwin Black, the author of
Yeah,
War Against the Weak and
yeah.
the Transfer Agreement, and just these amazing, essential books about those times.
So, I mean, guess what, John? It's like it's come full circle. Like it's almost cartoonish, the world that I live in. The one thing I've been banging on about singularly a few weeks ago. So I live in a gated community, which is common in Mexico for the middle class. And they decided about a month ago, I've been sounding the alarm on, in the EU, they're installing biometric exit entry systems, that went online in October. And, you won't be able to avoid that, like UK and all countries are now doing. I just read Russia. Russia just installed biometric exit entry for foreigners. But my gated community installed a biometric exit and entry to the entrance to my home, to the entrance to the gated community, and then they want to impose an app on everyone. So you will manage your entire life with an app, very dystopian. And I said, absolutely not. I told everyone, and I have not registered my face nor my biometric thumbprint. I yell at the guard to open the door. But I just found it funny now that the algorithm ghetto has actually come to my home, and I've decided to relocate. I will be relocating, even though they cannot yet legally force me to do this. Nevertheless, it's not good to be around, to have neighbors that are effectively your ideological enemies. And I'm going to comment to the chat. Someone is saying you only seem to want to talk to white guys. Technically, I'm a Slav, so according to the wokesters, I'm not white, and I'm Mexican too. So there you go. Anyways.
Since you drew my attention to it, I often don't look at the chat, and I don't have any watchers that can squash people if they're rude.
I can't tell if the guy is serious or not. I don't know
I'm gonna look because we're intervening the show in order to deal with this comment. Interview a real black man like me. I would love to. That would be fine. I think your comments so far that I've seen are meaningful and important. So I'd love to do that. You only seem to want to talk to white guys, not why? Oh man, I was just starting to like you. That's the kind of a comment that just I'm not taking the time to deal with something like that. And let's see if I can't delete the comment.
Well, I mean, I get the the way I think I approach podcasting, as you probably do, is I think of a topic that interests me, and I'll search whoever pops up who can speak to that topic, and I don't even look at their gender or race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just end up with the guests that I do. That I had a Cuban lady because I met her a few months ago, and I've been wanting to talk about Cuba because I think it's going to collapse, and so. But anyways, yeah. So that's
a big deal. I want to hear your thoughts about Cuba, but go ahead.
Yeah, just to finish on my first point. So for me, it's the digital technocracy, and now in Mexico, they're rolling out next month the Mexican digital ID. You basically won't be able to avoid it. They're going to cut off your phone service. You won't be able to buy or sell property, get married or get divorced, put your kids in school, get your pension, use banking, nothing. Unless you go give your biometrics to the narco states. But at the same time, it's happening in every country now. The EU is doing it. In the US, they're doing it state by state. And so, yeah, it's coming fast and hard.
Is that why there's a federal bill to forbid the states from regulating AI? Is that related?
I think that's separate, but I think it's also related. Yeah, I mean, even Financial Times this week. I mean, it's so late in the game. They're pointing out the obvious, and Trump and company don't care. The mask is off.
You're saying that one state can impose an ID requirement for entry from another state in the United
States? No, not that. I'm talking about the digital ID. So I just also was watching some folks that I listened to yesterday, and they said that the Real ID, for example, in many states you won't be able to avoid it next time. So when you go to renew your driver's license the following time, you will have to get a Real ID. Same thing like in Mexico with the CURP, with the biometric CURP, which is the Mexican digital ID. And state by state, in every country, they find their way. So they can't impose it federally in the US, digital ID. So they're doing it state by state, Michigan, Wisconsin so far, Alaska, I think Missouri.
My driver license is Real ID.
Right. But you've been able to avoid it. Like I've always used a passport all my life to travel. So I've never once in my life used my driver's license to travel nationally in the US. It's weird.
I just did it. I just flew to Memphis and now they got me. I should have used my passport.
But I've heard that when you go to renew your driver's license. Next time they'll make you do it real ID. But anyways, the states are bringing in the online age verification obligations. They're trying to ban VPNs in the US. And that online age verification, it's layered. It's like the first step towards mandating digital ID. I read the FTC is having a meeting scheming on how to bring it in. And so, yeah, the total control system is coming in globally. And you can't really, you're going to, your only option is to go live in a cave. If there's really no way you cannot not submit if you have a bank account, if you have a mobile. Otherwise, great. I mean, there's no like in between. It's either go live off grid completely on the mountain or in the forest or in a cave, or you're gonna have to get it. So
That is a big story. And sorry to hear that you have to move. That's always a hassle, and wish you well with that. And this is a dividing point in the history of mankind, where we're going to decide whether we're going to just sit back and let it happen, or somehow rise up and make it stop. Where are the opportunities to do that?
not, honestly, I ask people, like, do you see every time they're advancing? Where do you see us pushing back? And if we do, it's a very small victory or paltry, you know, pushback. They're just steamrolling over us year by year. And I talked to, just in my case, I talked to a Mexican neighbor who's with me. He said he's not doing it either. And he told me all the rest. I'm just using this as a sample. The virtually most of my neighbors, and he explained it to me as a Mexican. And he's a bit of an old school leftist as well. He kind of likes the Morena party, but he agrees they're corrupt. But he says that virtually most of our neighbors are these sort of materialist type liberal globalist techno-fascists, and they think it's cool. They go with the official narrative with everything. They love the technocracy. And then I was listening to a live stream yesterday where this was brought up in Americans, and they said the same thing. They said that, and they were speaking from their vantage point, their sample in the US, how most people, they just love the technocracy. They've given up liberty, notions that you and I talk about, and Benjamin Franklin, all these people of liberty and freedom for security. They just love the comfort. Like Aldo Huxley, they just love the slavery. They love the apps. They love digitizing everything. They spend their time in the virtual metaverse, and there ain't no snapping them out of it. And so, I mean, if you just see like my neighbors, they're all down with the apps. They want to install a digital Soviet Union. They'll track each other with the app. They can see something, say something, report on each other. They were trying to one up each other on how many rules. They were talking about banning kids' soccer balls in the park because they were damaging neighbors' homes. And it's like, they've lost their minds, these people. So how are we going to resist? And when it comes to all these legislations, I don't see, they're coming in so fast. Like you mentioned, the AI stuff with Trump, like states can't, they're imposing AI federally, the regulations. Basically, they're going to allow the oligarchs to do whatever they want, and states can't. Trump is spearheading this. He also, an article was published for the FTC and F5G. He's removing any last vestiges of local towns to be able to stop the installation of 5G towers. Trump is removing that. So they can just roll out the 5G, the AI, and let the PayPal mafia have free reign with us, like in sci-fi movies like Hunger Games or Maze Runner.
I've sensed this coming for a long time, and that's kind of what drove me out of the Democratic Party. At least, once I was pretty much one of those people you describe, a liberal Democrat that, kind of socialist tendencies and, voting for people like Al Gore and, and Obama. And that was after Obama's first election, in which I worked for him. It didn't take long for me to start realizing, no, nothing's going to change. It's not changing, and that's why I say that I've really enjoyed working with a lot of MAGA people over the past 6 or 7 years, and I think that they are the ones of all the people that I've known in my life that are the most likely to agree with you and say, "Oh, fine, let's go dig that cave, and let's work together to avoid this lockdown." There are so many psychological warfare programs that are being laid on people through the media and through daily life and through just everything that you hear. It's not just to divide and conquer. It's to divide and conquer us individually so that our minds kind of give up. And this is the moment in history where we are going to either maintain our ability to reason and to have a common sense among us, that this is the way we should go, or that this guy is lying, or that this is bullshit. We should be able to, all of us, stand up and call bullshit, and that's what you described. It comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in convenience. It's like, and I was thinking the other day, would an average mother allow her child to go to a Boy Scout camp for 2 weeks out in the woods with no phone and no contact? Would she even entertain that idea? Or would it just completely blow her mind and say, no, my kid is not going to be without his phone, period, end of story? That type of lack of experience of kids. I was lucky to get out into the Boy Scout camp for 3 summers, and it was just so fun and enlightening, and you would get a compass and try to follow directions and get to the prize, and losing that whole kid growing up in order to learn how to reason, in order to learn how to think, in order to learn how to be a contributor to a growing and happy population. It's all on the line right now, and so you're absolutely right to put that at the top of the list with this technocracy.
Yeah, you mentioned psyop. It's interesting. We are under. It's amazing, the constant psyops, and the military. They actually use in their own language the term psyop. Years ago, they switched it to MISO, and this is recent news. So a few years ago, they changed it to Military Information Support Operations, MISO, to kind of make it less obvious. And I just heard that under Hegseth's War Department, they're actually switching it back to PSYOP, because I think they're just so open about it now. And NATO, on one of their accounts I just caught in my feed yesterday, was posting about cognitive warfare. I mean, that's literally mind control, cognitive warfare, and they're being and they even justify, they speak about Russia and the evil, excessive evil. But I think and sometimes they even talk about Western society. It's like, who gives them the right to make war on our minds? It's insane.
Well, that's exactly what I think is the answer, is to keep pounding that question. These comforts that we got, these conveniences, these thrilling experiences online. This is all the bait in the trap. Why don't they see that this is a really nicely baited trap that once we fall into it, we'll never ever get out? don't understand, but that's why I think, people that are, people that would like be the hunters or the people that would have a self-sufficient farm or otherwise not be dependent on a daily, trip to the Starbucks or the grocery store or everything comes through the system, to be living independent. Well, that's been a lot of people's goals, certainly in my generation, and very few have succeeded at it. And the reason is because the cards are stacked against that. They don't want you to be independent. They want you to be dependent, and they want to have your facial recognition right now.
Yeah, I had on a few weeks ago Paul Craig Roberts, or is it maybe a month? Time flies, like a month or two ago. We were talking about all of these things, and he talked about digital communism, and a few other people that I followed alluded to the same, because if they're bringing in universal basic income, they're destroying, making everyone unemployed with automation and robots, and then they're going to give, for a time, universal basic income. But we know that these people want to democide us. They want to kill us. They are eugenicists. They, including most of the PayPal mafia. And he, Robert says it's effective. It's digital communism. And then I heard Kim Iverson talk about that. Same thing. And yeah, they're bringing in digital communism because they're going to own the means of production, and we're going to become useless. What do you call it? Like lotus eaters or something?
Useless eaters.
Useless eaters. And then we're just going to see how they're going to attempt to do away with us. The UBI is not going to be forever. Again, it's the sugar coating for the poison pill. It's like they've done with everything, right? With Bitcoin, with you name it. Trump's talking about golden age. The tariffs. New York Times reporting how middle class people now they order packages. Some lady ordered, I don't know, something for a couple $100, and she had to pay then the tariff, thanks to Trump, to obtain her package delivery, another couple $100. And like we knew this from the beginning. Who was going to pay for the tariffs? The Americans, the middle class. It's a tax. He says he's talking about getting rid of income tax. I don't think that's ever going to happen. So. And then there was the Epstein drop. That, like, some of the photos you see and the latest drop. I mean, I don't think you can deny anymore. It's Trump and Melania with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, and Steve Bannon is all over the place. I mean, if you ask me, Bannon is a deep state political operator, and I think he'll work for whoever pays him the most. And I don't know if I told you this before. We used to have meetings with friends here in Mexico, and we'd invite every month an interesting person to give us a talk. And one month it was a very old Mexican man who was a scientist. And he told us he participated in the late 80s in that project in the American Southwest, that dome, where they were trying to mimic life on I forget what it was called, Biodome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they made a movie about that. But he was in the Biodome. And he said one day, Steve Bannon shows, like, we're sitting with this Mexican scientist. It's like, it's not a joke. It's not some conspiracy theory. And he's telling us all these things. And he said, it was financed, obviously, by someone with money. Probably, it's part of the oligarch mentality. They're looking how to develop their Elysium. And he says one day, Steve Bannon, like, this is like probably early 90s. Steve Bannon shows up. And he was apparently sent by Rockefeller to tell them the project is shutting down. So at the time, Bannon is apparently on the payroll of, Rockefeller. And then now, who's he working for? He's hanging out with Epstein. He's, and so, as George Carlin said, I wish you were still alive to comment on all of this. It's one big club and we ain't in it, And Zamdani, right? Then I saw this clip only yesterday. It was like from a week ago. You see where Zamdani was in the office with Trump? There's that clip for the New York mayor, and the reporter says, and he's standing next to Trump, and he's like, the reporter says, "Didn't you call Trump a fascist one time?" And Trump puts his hand on his arm. "It's okay, you can say it. Like, I don't mind." And like, so you got this guy who pretends to be an enemy of this guy, calling him a fascist, and they're all like lovey-dovey. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, it's one big show.
That sounds like one of those movies where the bad guy, oh, don't worry, I'm not offended, Don Corleone got offended. Believe me, you're going to meet a quick and bloody end. It's sad. It's just really sad to think about the way our country's being run right now, and I include the past. What I include, everything since the Kennedy assassination. That's been my big work of passion lately, and I interviewed the writer MC Armstrong yesterday on my show. Really an interesting interesting show, and he used the phrase that we're on CIA autopilot. We've been on CIA autopilot ever since the Kennedy assassination, and that's why we have to finally uncover not only exactly what happened, but to prosecute the cover up, to put the blame where it needs to be, so that if not from a legal point of view, at least from a historical point of view, the American people can see that there was a coup and that there was a cover up, and that it's the reason we lost all those guys in Vietnam. It's the reason we've had such horrible foreign policy ever since. And it's the reason that our country has allowed this technocracy to creep and creep and creep into our lives, to the point where you and I have spent most of the show talking about it. So that's where I'm putting my marbles right now, is to try to convince the people that, we've got to have a president and a Congress that are willing to face exactly what happened to President Kennedy. That's where I think that the wedge is, although it's a long time ago, there's got to be a wedge somewhere, and to make people understand that the government that we have had ever since then is run by the criminals that did the coup, and that can't go on. It just can't.
But I see that worldwide. You're talking about U.S. In Mexico, we've got a narco state. In the EU, it's Operation Gladio state. In the Kremlin, it's the KGB and oligarchs. In Beijing, it's the CCP, who committed democide of tens of millions. But just to your last point, I thought this was interesting. There's a link, technocracy and CIA. So, in the psychological operations, a listener sent me a clip last week, a link to an Alex Jones interview. And I almost fell off my chair, and I cut the clip and I posted it online, and it got a little viral. It's Alex Jones interviewing Patrick Byrne, who is the former CEO of Overstock.com. And he's been all part of the MAGA QAnonish type movement the past few years.
I remember the name, but I need a little refreshing.
Yeah, he's you'd recognize his face. It seems like his principal project has been being involved in alt media. And so in this interview, so this was the first interview like a week or two ago. And subsequently, he came in studio to do an interview. But before getting in the first interview, they were talking about Venezuela. And both of them are like, this is, I think Alex Jones from the beginning has been an intelligence operation. It's clear now, because his parents were CIA military. And a lot of alt media today is basically a CIA operation. And they're talking about regime changing Venezuela. Like, yeah, we should. I'm not a fan of Maduro. I'm not anti-communist. I don't like the Venezuelan regime. But we're talking about regime changing it to remake Venezuela into, and they literally say, into a technocracy, into a digital state with blockchain and biometric ID accounts. And Alex Jones is like, oh, you mean like we can use the example of Bukele in El Salvador. And for the many years I've been saying Bukele is part of some globalist project because he's promoting the crypto Bitcoin stuff, to remake the country's economic system into a digital crypto state. And he's said, let's make a Central American Union, which is a globalist project. And so you have Alex Jones and Patrick Byrne promoting regime change in the country and remaking it into a technocracy, which is the same thing they're doing in Ukraine, and on and on. And then in the subsequent interview they just did in studio, Patrick Byrne comes out and reveals that he's been a CIA asset agent for decades. And now it's like, it's Alex Jones is joking about it. So it's clear that these guys are CIA, and they've through alternative media, their job is to onboard people with the deep state objectives, which in this case was to regime change Venezuela and remake it into a digital state. So it's absolutely wild.
That just reinforces what I think is the idea that it has been the CIA on autopilot that has taken over, and this is something that's the subject of an article over on Substack by the person that goes by Escape Key or ESC underline. This person is fantastic, and one of their essays back in May of this year, I've reread it a couple of times. It's really good. Is about when Kennedy fired. Remember, he fired after the Bay of Pigs. He fired Bissell. He fired Cabell, and he fired Allen Dulles. And my friend Bill over on X turned me on to the fact that he'd also fired another guy named Robert Lovett. And this man, Amory, Robert Amory. And Robert Amory, the brother of Cleveland Amory, the famous writer and pet advocate. Anyway, this Robert Amory was in charge of the technocracy project as it existed at that time. And as you know, this was what Robert S. McNamara was brought into the Defense Department to do, was to turn everything into a computerized, technologically, advanced Defense Department and let the experts put the system together. And that was the seed. That was the first example that was brought into the American government of what has been going on for a long time. And, back to Huxley and George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells and all of them, they've been, this idea of technocracy has been developing all ever since the 1880s, 1890s. So now there it is parked in the CIA with Robert Amory. And so the article by Escape Key, whose full long name is The Price of Liberty is Eternal Vigilance, over on Substack, and I just want to make sure and give him full credit. He goes on to explain how the death of JFK was the beginning of the technocracy. And in fact, getting rid of JFK was necessary because Kennedy was suspicious of a lot of these programs and didn't like the way it was working and, was critical of it. So that's another motive to get rid of Kennedy so that they could go ahead with their technocracy development. And that, I think, is a very valid idea that's what really happened.
And just on X, just to add to what you're saying, I'm trying to find it. It was on my feed, and I shared it the other day. You've got Hegseth, who rolled out this Gen AI .mil, and did he delete his? There was another comment, but basically, there's an X account, U.S. Tech Force, and they have this video, and it says, "Join an elite group of technologists to transform the federal government through modern software development." Go to techforce.gov to apply today. And that's like that's literally technocracy. Tech Force. and they've just rebranded it now, with this handsome Hegseth cosplaying at the helm, and this cool MAGA Trump, and the PayPal guys and the Musk, and so they've just made it look cool, this veneer facade, but you peel that back and it's like 1930s technocracy. And technologists, that's technocracy. They're like, join the technocracy movement. It's mind blowing. It's
come work for INGSOC, the English socialism, where it's technocracy. And the other thing that I wanted to mention earlier, when you mentioned that this is communism, this is technologically imposed communism. The people on the liberal side don't see that. They see it as fascism. They see, that this is the PayPal mafia, and this thing that they're doing is fascist. And that difference in language for two different flavors of totalitarianism tends to sustain the division between liberal and conservative people that are awake to the problem. So I would ask everybody to start thinking in the terms of the fact that, it's in my opinion, but I've been studying this stuff, that both of those things are creatures, they're mythologies, they are propaganda. And to say that you have to be a communist because you hate fascism, or to say you have to be a fascist because you hate communism, is to just say, I want to be a pawn in the game. I would like you to use me however you need to, and throw me in front of a tank or a machine gun. I don't care, because I just want to be a partisan. And this psychological power that they have over us now has convinced most people to say, okay, sign me up. I'm going to fight against the fascists. And then the other ones, I'm going to fight against the communists.
I think you're on point, and that's important, because one red flag for me when I'm consuming podcasts and alternative media is when I see someone banging on today about the communist threat. I'm like, you're disingenuous. You're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, or you're part of this CIA psyops to get us looking over here, because what we're up against, it's an amalgamation. There's a great meme I saw the other day of a man and a woman. The man was holding the Soviet Union flag, and the woman was holding the Nazi German flag, and there was a second frame, and they had a baby, and the baby was carrying the EU flag, right? Which I think is correct. The bastard child of fascism and communism, new European Soviet, or Fourth Reich, as I call it, both terms. But we're up against globalism. It's globalism. If you're not talking about globalism or something similar, then you're intentionally getting us to think in the frame of left, as you said, left versus right, communism, or fascism. No, it's both. Globalism is an amalgamation. It includes fascism. It includes communism. It includes technocracy, algocracy, monopoly capitalism, or whatever you want to call it. And I was even here in Mexico, like, it's the worst. We were at a gathering, old people, young people. The older people tend, kind of, as you were alluding to earlier, tend to be, more Republican, or let's say right. And they're talking about whatever topic, and the older person starts going against the left-wing Mexican, party that's in power, Morena. And the younger person, who's like pro-abortion, the typical liberal globalist, is attacking the right. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys have no idea what's going on. Like, literally, we have the Mexican government being run by the globalists. BlackRock is remote controlling Scheinbaum and Morena. Mm-hmm. And you guys are talking about, like, the parties. Get the hell out of here. It's just like if you can't get past, we're doomed. You're lemmings. There was a funny article from The Atlantic the other day talking about how people's minds are being like Google Mapsification, they said, where they can't think anymore. They've delegated it to Google Maps and the apps, and they talked about lemmings. So I've been calling these people lemmings. And in the Atlantic article, you have the LLMs for the
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
and they spell lemmings like LLM lemmings, and I'm like, that's so correct. People have become like LLM lemmings. They can't think anymore. And so if people cannot get past step one, how can they see the bigger picture?
It took me so long to get that LLM thing because it's a designation of a master lawyer in the traditional. You would get a LLB for your bachelor and an
Learning language model. Yeah.
LLM, the
Language learning model.
laws and letters master, LLM. So yeah, that is a big topic that Peter Duke over at his show at the Duke Report has explored extensively, and it's really as you just said, another part of the psyop is that they will just take a word and kind of weaponize it. The word woke, for example, I think that's a good example of a word that just kind of got weaponized so that it inspires emotional response whenever you hear it, no matter which side you're on. And oh, they shouldn't call us woke, we're really just good people. But oh no, the wokes are just silly. Back and forth. It's just another divide and conquer. Is the LLM of AI. That stuff has an attitude, man. I venture into that grok land from time to time with all of my caution lights on, with all my my sixth sense Spencer, and it doesn't take any time at all to show that this thing is programmed to lead you to a certain result that has nothing to do with the truth. This is not a truth-seeking program. It's a program that wants to keep you engaged and spin stories that ultimately benefit the narrative, in my opinion.
And just another way example of how I try to demonstrate to these Mexicans, both left and right, and maybe some didn't care for either party, the lies, like how Scheinbaum, and again you can apply this to any country. What a lying liar this. I yesterday I read that Scheinbaum, patria, like that means patria, like your country, your patriotism, like it's the masculine word for patria, for patriotism of your country. And now she says she wants to introduce matria, like mother. I'm like, we've got cartels and you're playing around with this garbage. And then my point was, and then she says the digital ID won't be obligatory, and now you're seeing all the papers say, oh, it's going to be obligatory. Like she came out in the press conference, it's not like lying straight to our faces, and they say that she got a 71% approval rating. I'm like, how do these people have no shame? But my point is, they're coming out and saying Mexican digital ID is going to be obligatory. It's going to keep you safe from the cartels and extortionists and kidnappers. I'm like, okay, stop, everyone, stop. Wait a minute. Let's use our logic here. This is what the Mexican government is saying is their reason for bringing in digital ID in Mexico. So you don't get kidnapped or extortion or whatever.
But are the kidnappers going to have digital ID as well?
There, I've known people who worked in government, and they said there's always corrupt people in their agency who are creating false identities and documents, and yeah. but my point is, like, it's just like COVID 5 years ago. This digital ID is happening simultaneously across the planet now. European Union, 28 countries, African countries, Asia, Middle East. They're making the same obligatory systems. But wait a minute, in those countries, they don't have kidnappings and extortion. So you're obviously lying to us. So what because what you're doing the same thing. All of you guys are doing it at the same time. Why? They're not extorting people in Croatia, kidnapping. So it's a BS reason, pretext that you're giving us. It's just for total control, So, and then that kind of made people in the gathering think. No one said anything. They let me give my little rant, and they sort of nodded their heads. So,
Wow, that's yeah, but I mean, you're doing what you can, and you're doing an awful lot. I wanted to get back to Cuba, because you made a comment about Cuba a little while ago, and I've also been very concerned that this may be a plan to just take down Cuba, to just take advantage of the ability that we have now to cut off their oil, to cut off the their ability to sustain their economy. Anyway, you tell us what's going on with this Cuba thing in the.
So I like going back a year. I've been saying, in passing on podcast episodes or in my Telegram feed or X, I've been saying, look, Cuba's can't last much longer. It's going to fall, because I know people who are sporadically visiting Cuba, and the on the ground report is that it's completely disintegrated. There's no electricity, no water, no communications, barely any food. Like, it's literally collapsing. So you think it hasn't been like this ever. It's like just collapse. And how long that cannot sustain itself. The ruling regime, like, you're going to have people just dying and collapsing and revolting eventually, because they're dying anyway, so they might as revolt. And so I've been signaling that. And then Venezuela happens, and then the Mexican, Washington preparing to invade or start hitting cartels within Mexico. And then the bigger picture to all of that is the U.S. foreign policy that we mentioned. Venezuela, they want to take it over, remake it into technocracy. They're doing that in Argentina. So I think the bigger picture is, again, it's always world government.
Yeah.
And so you saw the national security, the NSS that was released, that people are talking about, and how it's Orwell again was privy to the plans. So they want to get us to a world government. Each step of the way, they need to move us from nation states to supranational blocks. Orwell, each time you get progressively closer to a world state. So you move from 200 states to a couple dozen regional unions, to a dozen regional unions, to 3 blocks like Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia.
Yeah.
And so part of the current Trump policy is to step away from Europe, take control of the Western Hemisphere. China is going to do the same in its region. Council on Foreign Relations just published an article on Foreign Affairs talking about that. So China is going to do its version of Monroe Doctrine. It almost sounds like Washington's going to let them. So they're going to build their supranational regional bloc. Maybe Russia takes part of Europe to mimic, Eurasia, and U.S. takes the Americas. So that's the overarching, I think, logic to, and I think they're going to regime change. They're going to Noriega Maduro. At this point, they've invested too much in the narrative not to. You've already got the fighter jets coming in close to Caracas and saying we're going to now do stuff on the ground. So, and Putin comes down and says we're going to help Maduro. They threw Gaddafi to the dogs. They threw Putin to the dogs. The multipolar world's going to throw Maduro to the dogs. There's nothing they can do. Please, come on. And so Maduro's gone. If you ask me, they're going to regime change in Venezuela. They said Gustavo Petro is next. Trump said in Colombia. And then Cuba will probably fall. And then we may see as well military action in Mexico. And all of that is to create the American technate as China creates the East Asia technate. And it's still unclear how Europe, Russia will proceed. So yeah, it seems like Europe is collapsing. They might throw again Europe at Russia, and with the intended outcome to try to create a new sort of bloc to create the Eurasian Union. Maybe, well, they want to create the Atlantic Union. So they do want to take Western Europe and attach it to the North American Technate. That's been a plan by Clarence Strait since the 1940s. I just saw Canada is integrating its digital ID with the European Union, which is interesting. So they're making it interoperable. So anyways, that's sort of my view of what's going to happen with Cuba and the region.
And what's behind this war against Maduro? A lot of people have ideas that it's the oil. Some people are saying that that's where the election operation was run out of. To swing the vote towards the Democrats. And of course, there's resources other than that, but or it could really be that Maduro is the biggest drug dealer in the world, and I just don't see it.
No, I don't see any of that. Again, I think the primary reason is to prepare the regions for world government. Second, there was a great clip from, I think it was Sky News, but whatever, it was a good clip analysis. I included it in my weekly analysis, a YouTube video, like 5 minutes or 10. And the guy explained that I think it's Venezuela has the heavy crude oil, and that if you look at the map, you've got Venezuela, and then the top of the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, where a lot of the American oil refinery is, like Texas, where they refine a lot of the heavy oil. And a lot of the shale oil boom that's going on now is light oil, and these refineries need heavy oil, which they don't have a lot of, but Venezuela does. And so it's just right across the waters. So one is Venezuela's oil, obviously. And again, I think to remake it for world government technocracy. And I just saw as well, Trump is making a deal with Argentina and its resources. And so they're trying to take as much of the supply chains, logistics, resources, minerals, a lot of which is going to be needed for the AI data centers to run the technocracy. So, yeah. This whole stuff about, let's get serious. The U.S. has been involved in cartel trafficking, so it's ridiculous,
Yeah, Gary Webb and Hastings and everybody.
Someone pointed out there's a 60 Minutes report, like I forget the name of the cartel they're accusing Maduro being at the head of. There was a 60 Minutes report from like a decade or two ago talking about how like the CIA created that cartel or was involved with it. So you're gonna have to point at yourself.
Let's get back. I want to get back to Trump in the couple minutes we have left, because from the No Kings days, the major attempt to convince people that Trump is acting as a king and is taking away all the people's powers in democracy, to a number of allegations that he might not be healthy, that he mentally may be slipping. And now this comment about Rob Reiner, who died yesterday in a very unfortunate and violent way, and other things that Trump has done that just seem to be provoking the left and making him look very unattractive as we head into 2026. And of course, where I'm heading with this is, it seems to me that the power of the uniparty and that can swing the pendulum this way and that way has decided to kind of discredit Trump as we head into the 2026 midterms, and we'll end up with a Democratic, at least a House of Representatives, if not a whole Congress, which could immediately start dismantling all the things that Trump has done that have made the MAGA people feel that he's fulfilling their promise. because most of what he's done is just executive orders and they haven't changed the law in any way. So the Congress, the loss of the Congress looks to me like it's being orchestrated. And it looks to me like, Trump has been great. Thank you very much, Trump. But now we're done with you, and we're gonna let you ride off into the sunset if you do what we tell you. Otherwise, you might have a shorter life. That's the way I see things run in this country anymore. It is government under the coup and not government under the Constitution, and that is the essence of our status right now in this country, and that is the reason that the technocracy marches on. I firmly believe that.
So I've heard other people echo what you said. Like I said, I think it can go in many ways. I think it's entirely plausible. That's one option that they could take it. Definitely, they can swing it back to the left. I kind of don't. I feel like, given the signals that I'm seeing, I don't see that yet. My feeling, again, anything can change in a week, in a month, in a year. My current feeling is that they're going to keep pushing the Trump train down the line, because again, with the culture that they're building again of this right-wing anti-migration culture, this manifest destiny 2.0 type stuff that Hegseth is talking about. They need this buy-in from the patriotic conservatives for American Empire 2.0, Monroe Doctrine 2.0. Who's going to go fight in their wars? It's not going to be the left. It's going to be the right. And they're already talking about there's different ways that can they've Bannon and others have. You see the fake alternative media like Steve Bannon and Alex Jones. They continue to promote this Civil War 2.0 narrative because they want that. They need that. So obviously, when you see these people in alt media promoting that, you see they're part of this operation.
I absolutely with you on Bannon, and
even Tucker is promoting it. Like Tucker, okay, he does some good interviews, and I do watch some of them, but I think he's part of the same game. I mean, he lies. He's openly said in interviews he likes neo-feudalism. And he says he's not wealthy. Well, come on, Swanson family. He's lying to us. And what was I going to say? So they're positing J.D. Vance to come in 2028. Maybe like an Erica Kirk. All these manufactured technocratic right-wing personas. So, or Bannon has talked about some special event happening that Bukele did it to rewrite some clause or interpret some clause of the Constitution to allow Trump to go a third time. So I could see Trump being in the third time, or an acolyte like J.D. Vance coming in. That's kind of how I'm seeing it at the moment, but they could swing back to the left. So who knows?
Yeah, as far as the presidency, it's too far off to say for me, but I do think that the Congress could flip it. And because Trump is being so obnoxious, he just doesn't have to be that.
But again, they're setting him. The other thing, though, it's kind of weird. The FIFA just created a peace prize and gave Trump the peace prize. They renamed the Peace Institute to the Trump Peace Institute. Politico, for the first time ever, named a non-European as the most important European politics and policy person, Trump. I just read yesterday they're going to put Trump on a coin, and someone made the comment, Caesar, like in Roman Empire, they're going to put an edition of a U.S. coin, Trump on his. So if they're going to get rid of, it's kind of strange that they would move. They're building, him up. The Zionists call him the Cyrus, who's going to bring in, the greater Israel and temple. So it's kind of like they're investing so much in the Trump narrative, which dissuades me from thinking currently that they're going to move away from him, unless they set him up to fail somehow. So I don't know.
Well, it is complicated, and I see that happening, and then that also serves another very big important purpose, and that is it puts a cloud over everybody that might want to say, well, what does real Trump supporters really think? Why did they vote for Trump instead of Harris? What it really makes them tick? because they constantly will see the Steve Bannon, and they'll see the Heritage Foundation and the crazy the Jewish billionaires, and they will just say, well, that those talking points that you just rattled off, that's what MAGA people think. But it's not. It's not at all what MAGA people think. And the MAGA movement is getting squished out of the Republican Party right now. And I regret that, because there are a lot of truly honest, patriotic, hardworking Americans that belong to that supported President Trump. And if we don't have something like that going forward, then again, I think these are the people that can be awake to the danger that we face with this technocracy.
I think I read that Harris is going to run in 2028. It's just, what a clown show.
All right. Well, this has been an interesting show for me. Thank you so much, Hrvoje.
Well, always great chatting, and I guess I'll see you in 2026.
Yeah. All right. And just remind everyone tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, Friday, Marcia and I will do our usual Friday live chat. So if people do have questions, George, for instance, please post them on Friday, and we can address your concerns there. Usually in these interviews, I don't take a lot of questions, so forgive me for that. Hrvoje, thanks again, my friend. I'll see you again in the new year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.